Hi everybody! Are you grabbing up a cup of tea? Just like me, I love my tea in the morning. But it has been compelling me to create a video for you guys about social anxiety. It's something that is so prevalent and something that I grew up with, debilitating social and general anxiety, until the age of about 34. And the thing is, it can really destroy your whole life. And I want to share with you what social anxiety actually feels like. And today what has surprised me is most people didn't even know that I was struggling. So like with many challenges that people face, we can't always see from the outside. Others can't see. And I want to share with you how that felt, because it can support other people. First of all, I thought it was my personality. I just thought it was the way I was. I was wrong. We can all feel anxious at times, and that is normal because it helps us to achieve and perform to the best of our ability. It makes us strive. But the condition of anxiety is very, very different. Social anxiety, from as long as I can remember, I felt like I was being intensely observed and judged. And you know how self-conscious that can make you feel. You know what? If you feel like something is wrong with you, and I'd like to tell you what I went through daily and how I overcame it. Most days I would wake up and think, oh no, here we go again. Trying to put on that brave face and be strong inside. Most days I would just crumble at a certain point in the day because life goes on and you have to go on. So you got to find ways to cope. When I would have, I would call it panic attack or stress attack. Let's start from head to toe, how it would make me feel. I would feel like my head was getting dizzy. Often I remember that I couldn't even see anymore. I had ringing in my ears, so I couldn't see and I couldn't hear. I felt I was getting so hot, sweating, perspiring from head to toe. Start trembling. I felt so often like I was having a heart attack. My heart was bouncing off the walls around me, trembling. You feel really nauseous and horrible in your tummy. All of this was anxiety. You know, you can't think straight. You can't think logically when you are in that state of mind. And that's what it is, a state of mind. When you are in that panicked state, what's happening is you're going into that fight, flight, freeze response. I chronically lived in that response. It was my way of being. This is not a helpful or a good way of being because chronic stress releases cortisol and other chemicals into your body, which increases and produces inflammation, and inflammation causes disease. So it's really important that we learn to manage stress and anxiety in a more helpful way. And thankfully I did, and I'm going to share that with you. That cycle, what that does is you start to become avoidant of people and situations because you're afraid of it happening again. You can preempt what's going to happen and you'll be found out. What happens then? You avoid situations. If you have to be in situations, you may turn to unhelpful coping mechanisms like alcohol, drugs, whatever. You got to get through, and you find something that works for you to help you get through. And that's what happens generally in the later teenage years and in their 20s to help people cope. And again, today, a lot of people are doing this because they need to find ways to cope. So it's a vicious cycle. We tend to analyze what everybody thought what we're thinking, what they thought of us, and we over analyze all of this. We're living in our heads. We think of the worst possible case scenario, and our mindset becomes very negative, because when we're practicing this way of thinking over and over, that becomes our default way of thinking. It becomes who we are. I just didn't know that I had a choice. I knew none of it made sense, but I just didn't know what to do about it. That's the problem. No matter how brave I would try, I would tell myself, you're strong, you can do this. And then I would just crumble. And that makes it worse for the next time. This really affects your relationships, your schooling, because you can't do your best when you're so focused on just trying to get through the day. It is so debilitating. Anxiety, social anxiety, is not shyness, although shyness can be a trait of social anxiety. Social and general anxiety in particular I'm talking about can be hereditary traits. It can be a learned behavior from people you live with. It can be a learned behavior from you based on something that happened to you. Maybe you were intimidated, judged, and now you notice and you're aware of how you reacted, and you anticipate that reaction again. So when we're in a similar situation, what does our brain do? It reacts in the same way to protect you. It's trying to protect you from harm and keep you safe. But it's a learned behavior, and it'll happen over and over and over again unless we learn to manage it. What this did to me until about the age of 34, 36, I'm 48 now. I don't struggle anymore because I've learned to manage it. But what it did and what it does, this invisible, horrible imprisonment of social anxiety, is it erodes your confidence. You feel so weak and actually pathetic. Your self-talk is very, very negative, and you feel so sensitive. You feel very isolated. And it's a horrible, horrible way to live that can destroy your life and lead to, like I said, very unhelpful coping mechanisms. And I want you to know it's social anxiety. That's what I can speak of because that's what I've had. It is not you. If you are experiencing any of these symptoms on an ongoing basis, ask somebody for support. There is so much support out there that can really, really help you, but you need to be looking in the right place. I got books, I got CDs, I tried all of these things, but kept it very secretive because you don't want anyone to know, because you feel they will perceive you as being weak. You are not weak. Social anxiety is a condition. Like I said, it can be inherited or learnt, but you don't have to live with it. Your life is too precious. Google where you can find someone to help you with social anxiety. I helped myself. The CDs and the books just didn't work. And the longer you've lived with it, the more it's going to take to undo that mindset. Medication may be necessary. And I'm a huge advocate for reaching out to whatever works for you to help you live an amazing, happy life, because it steals you of your happiness and your joy. I felt like I was in prison. I'm happy to say now that I don't feel like that anymore. What I turned to, what worked for me, and I can only share what has worked for me. I went to the doctor saying that I couldn't cope anymore. And when we talked through it, I was so relieved when it was discovered that this was something I was experiencing. It was social anxiety. It wasn't me at all. And with medication to start with, I began to feel better, and I felt such a weight off knowing that I was not my anxiety. It was something I was experiencing. It was a learned behavior or a chemical imbalance in my brain. That meant I could do something about it and I could be free of it. And I am. I found mindfulness training, and it's something that I studied on my own now for years and have practiced. That has helped me now to actually rewire my brain and the way I think. And because I now think so differently and so much more positively, and it's work I had to do, I don't go down that pathway of thinking that I used to do, where I was catastrophizing and over-analyzing and exaggerating everything in my head. Now I know that I have a choice of thinking. And with practice, you can rewire the way you think. And when you think differently, it affects the way you feel and then the way you act. And what happens is, with this training, what happens is you can intercept those feelings, those really intense, horrible feelings in your body before they hijack you. You learn skills and techniques to be able to manage the symptoms. And when you can manage the symptoms in your body, it stops that vicious cycle from continuing. You're able to put a wedge between it. You're able to step back and observe it as being separate from you. And in the meantime, you're also learning to rewire and manage how you think and how you respond to what you think. So what's happening in your body affects your brain, and what's happening in your brain affects your body. And I know it's a vicious, vicious cycle, but mindfulness taught me how to think differently and how to respond, to understand and manage what was going on in my mind and in my body, so I could live a happier life. I also found running, and running was of incredible benefit to me. I also learned that the more I look after myself, and for me, self-compassion training is huge, because it taught me to love myself and to be kinder to myself. Because when you're dealing with this intense anxiety, you tend to, well, I was so critical and hard on myself. I actually hated who I was. I had to learn to manage all of the anxiety and learn to love and accept the person I am. I'm not anxiety. You're not anxiety. It's something that you experience, but it is not you. And self-compassion taught me to accept and love the real me. And that is very, very, very powerful and necessary when you struggle with anxiety. Because often we talk to ourselves like we wouldn't even do our pet or our child or our best friend. So again, this is all training. I learned to love and accept myself with mindfulness training, which I now share with others. Running gave me freedom. When you have anxiety, you have a buildup of oxygen in your system, because when you're anxious, your breathing becomes very shallow and rapid. Right? So when you change your breathing, you change the chemical response that's actually going on in your brain. And I do a session on that too to help you if you want to find out. But you have, because you're gasping for air like this, when you're anxious and stressed, you have increased oxygen in your system, and this actually makes your anxiety worse. So breathing techniques and breath work, that training, helps you to calm your whole system, which calms the chemical response in your brain. So it's really, really important. For me, I've been compelled to make this video because also what was a huge turning point for me is speaking about how I'm feeling, because I always felt so weak and worthless and that there was something wrong with me. I want you to know there is not something wrong with you. If you're experiencing severe anxiety and it's becoming chronic and affecting your life, it's not you. It's something you're experiencing. And if you're experiencing it, you can do something about it. okay? That is very important for me to share with you, because I don't want to see you suffer, because I know what it's like. I also created, based on all my learnings and my studies, I created a self-study online course called Breaking the Chains of Anxiety, because I know how hard it is to go out there and seek help when you feel like that. So this is something I would have loved and appreciated years ago. And because it's a self-study online course, you can do it in the comfort of your own home and at your own pace, without having to reach out and actually speak to anybody. It could be a nice first step for you or somebody you know, because I just want to help people. I don't want to see them suffer. I really don't. And I know there are ways and there are things that you can do to break those chains of anxiety like the way I did. Because like I said, your life is too precious. So don't suffer in silence. If you're struggling, reach out, because you are not your anxiety. And if it's not you, it means you can challenge and change it. Thanks for listening and have a lovely day.